time. Now we quickly move on to our third session on panel discussion. Today's topic for the panel discussion is young mind more vulnerable for behavioral addiction? And for this, I would like to invite our chairpersons, Dr. K.K. Misra and Dr. Jayanta Das. First of all, I would like to introduce Dr. K.K. Misra, sir. Sir has a credit of 24 years of service in Armed Forces Medical Services. He is presently working as a professor and head Department of Psychiatry and also President IAPP Assam State Branch, MGIMS Sevagram Maharashtra, India, trained in Child and Adolescent Mental Health Nimhans, Bangalore. Sir has more than 30 publications, reviewer and editorial board member of several national and international journals. Sir is the direct council member of Indian Psychiatric Society and also Executive Council member of Indian Association for Child and Adolescent Mental Health 2015-17. Sir is also the treasurer of IACAM and also the journal representative IAGMH, Life Fellow of IPS, IASP, IAMH, IAPP and
Ranita, good evening. You can go to join us, sir, because yesterday we had a long introduction, so that you can go to join us, sir. Okay. Because we are running out of time, so we can start.
Next, I would like to introduce Dr. Jayanta Das, Senior Consultant Psychiatrist, Guwahati. Sir is the President, IAPP Assam State Branch, State Chair, Person of School Mental Health Division, IPS, and Founder, President Mon Niramoy, a Community Mental Health Care Foundation. Now, I would like to hand over the session to our chairpersons.
Dr. Mishra? Am I audible, Dr. Mishra? I think you have to unmute.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have unmuted, sir. You start
okay,
up with the thing, sir.
I'll just give an opening remark. Yes. Thank you, Indian Association of Child and Adolescent Mental Health Society, and thank you, organizers, for giving this opportunity and also honoring both of us as a moderator to run this special session of panel discussion. We have had a very stimulating session just concluded by Dr. Seshadri, and I think we have along with us 5 very distinguished, renowned psychiatrists from different parts of India, and they are distinguished on their own field. So before I go ahead with the program, I'd like to ask Dr. Mishra to give his opinion and his remark.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. So we have already a long session of for 2 days discussing on the different aspects of the internet addiction and other software addiction. Now we have got experts all in the field, and like we have got 5 experts in this field. We will be having interacting with them the different aspects, how they come across in their day-to-day practice and how they to manage those cases. From the beginning, I think we have Dr. Savita Malhotra, madam, Dr. Adarsh Kohli, madam, and Dr. Devashish, Konar, Dr. Kishor, Gujar, and Dr. Vivek. So what we have planned, we will actually plan for 6 to 7 minute point of like initial introduction on the topic, and then we can go whatever the question raised by the audience, then we can discuss with the panelists. So we can start with.
I just would like to interrupt for a minute, Dr. Mishra. See, we have total 50 minutes time in our hand, and we have 5 panelists. And so out of that 50 minutes, probably we can allot 8 minutes to each of the panelists. So
yes, 7 to 8 because they will overlap, and we actually have to finish within 15 minutes. So we'll overlap.
Allowing them 2 to 3 minutes for opening remarks.
Yes, yes.
Then of course we can have another round.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we can start with Savita, madam.
Yes, so we go according to the names that is reflected in the agenda. Dr. Savita Malhotra, Dr. Devashish, Dr. Kishor, Gujar, Dr. Vivek, and Dr. Adarsh Kohli. So each of you can give an opening remark for 2 to 3 minutes. I'll myself or Dr. Mishra will stop you in between if you have you just notice that you are suppressing the time. Just to remind you, with due respect, of course, and then probably we can have again a second round. Is it okay, Dr. Mishra?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
Okay.
We can start from Savita, madam.
Yeah, fine. Absolutely. Dr. Savita Malhotra, the platform is yours.
Okay. Thank you so much. The topic for this panel discussion is adolescent mind more vulnerable to behavioral addictions? I would just like to present, my slides here. Just a brief overview. You said 2 to 3 minutes. If I take 5 minutes, is it?
No, 5 minutes, okay, madam. 5 minutes you can take.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
2 to 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, 5 minutes you can take.
I can take 5 minutes. And what I'm going to talk about is that there is sufficient evidence that there is no question about, is the adolescent brain more vulnerable? The answer is yes, and yes. How and why and how do we say that? That is the whole question, and there is enough evidence to say that. Adolescents, brain development is not complete till about 25 years of age. And the maturational mechanisms in the form of neuronal plasticity, myelination, synaptic pruning, and all that is taking place during this time. And there is a lot of this activity during adolescent phase. And particularly corticolimbic circuitry is undergoing maturation during adolescence. And teen brains are not fully developed compared to adult brains. And maturation, particularly of frontal cortex, is the last to occur and is complete by 25 years of age. And gray matter and white matter subcomponents of the brain, they undergo dynamic changes during this phase of development, that is adolescence. Now, there is a mismatch between physical development and brain maturation. Physical and sexual maturation is complete much earlier than the brain maturation. We say that the age of maturity is 18 years, but this is not backed by maturation of higher cognitive functions. Cognitive functions mature only by 25 years, although the body, the hormone, the physical body and the hormonal, the functions are mature by that age. And hormonal surge, it pushes for actions, while the immature brain is not able to exercise enough caution, risk minimization, and sound judgment. So that is why adolescents are usually the daredevils. They take risks and they do things without really understanding or caring much about the harm or the negative aspects. And there are difficulties in the adolescent age, that they have difficulties in cognitive control and emotional regulation. Both are impaired. Both are not fully developed. I won't say impaired. They are not fully developed. And there is a substantial change that is taking place in the neurotransmission of dopamine and the hormonal status, which contributes to emotional dysregulation in this age. And we also know that this is the age in the adolescence where the many neuropsychiatric disorders, they start, and because of the dysfunctions that are taking place at this age. And this is further accentuated if they smoke marijuana. We know adolescent behavior, is characterized by risk-taking, impulsiveness, sensation-seeking, thrill-seeking, novelty-seeking, and they, in addition, adolescents, they enjoy freedom, but they do not have as yet responsibilities that adults have. So therefore, their ability to take considered decisions is much, much impaired. And they cannot, considering their physical, mental, emotional, and social dependence on others, they are unable to fully comprehend the social consequences of their actions and have difficulties in complex decision making. They are volatile, vulnerable, and emotional. Now, vulnerability to addictions is rather high in this age. They are more sensitive because adolescents are more sensitive to rewarding stimuli. They are less susceptible to aversive effects of substances. They are more focused on pleasurable experiences. And the surge of dopamine is 10 times higher in adolescent age than as compared to other pleasurable activities. So this is what drives them to substance use or addictions. Now, internet addiction Internet addiction is a little more
I'll just join.
specific, because it's pleasurable,
Nice.
the immediacy of effect, the
Yes.
anonymity of experience
Yes.
that contributes to excessive and repetitive use of internet. Adolescents who are more socially shy, withdrawn, or anxious, they find it more comforting because of the anonymity. And those who are extroverts, they find this as an opportunity and platform to reach out to many people very quickly. And they can get into a situation which is by using internet, which can be likened to substance use disorder. Although yesterday Bhaskar Mukherjee was emphatically trying to explain that this is not similar to addiction in many ways, and there is a little bit kind of excessive use or overuse. There is an overlap between obsessionality and dependence. So internet addiction and brain development in adolescent, there is a big concern whether excessive use of internet is rewiring our brains. But actually what happens is that in adolescence, the brain development in terms of sensory processing and language acquisition is all complete. So therefore, all those aspects are not affected by the use of internet in adolescence. But adolescence age is a sensitive period for socio-cultural learning, for cognition like social, personal, moral judgment, learning, discrimination, behavioral inhibition. So these aspects get impaired when they are excessively engaging in it. And there are some structural studies, they found individuals with internet gaming disorders, they have some structural changes in the form of parameter volume or density, which is lower in them. But there is no clear evidence as yet that excessive internet use affects the brain in the same way as the substances of abuse do. And this is still controversial. And whatever the differences that have been found in some studies in brain imaging of excessive the internet gaming disorder in adolescents, that this may be attributable to their genetic and behavioral differences between individuals rather than occurring due to internet or excess gaming behavior. But on the other hand, behavioral, affective, cognitive, and social dysfunctions that occur in excessive use of internet, that is a matter of concern. This is what I would like to say, summarizing, is that there is enough evidence and data to suggest that the adolescent brain is more susceptible and vulnerable to develop any addiction, and internet addiction or this smartphone addiction. I'll stop here. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you,
Dr. I can take over.
Yes, Dr. Mishra, please go ahead, since you will be leaving little
Yes. No, Madam has discussed about this different aspects of the brain pathology and how the changes occur in the smartphone actually addiction. So we can actually go ahead if any questions are there. I'll just see if there is any question in the course. Madam, if you have any question, I'll just go ahead and see. Is there any question by the participants?
Dr. Mishra, shall we have all the presentations and have...
Yes, madam, we can have the end actually. That is best actually. We can have the end actually. So now we can request.
The topic, yeah.
Yes. Now we can request Dr. Konar to actually have his presentation, and at the end we can have the discussion of the Konar.
Yes. I'll say that this age group is very unique, and at the same time it starts from childhood and progresses to adulthood. It has a continuity also. Means it's not that just because we are seeing an adolescent and feeling that it's a unique phase, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have continuity with earlier and the later part. So we have to understand that this phase is part of a continuum. This age group, adolescent, about which we are mainly concerned in this panel discussion, is the period when people explore themselves and the environment. They have the desire to be accepted in their peer groups and by the society in general. That's a difficult part because their interests sometimes may be different than the society in general. They may be more interested in something which may not be accepted by parents and may not be accepted by the society in general, but that is their wish and that is their passion, that is their desire that they need to pursue. At the same time, they need to match with the society. So this is the reason that they sometimes have difficulties in this period. As we always say that adolescence is a very rosy period. We always say that koi lauta de mere bite hue pal, kind of very romantic kind of. But the truth is that adolescence is also a difficult phase of life when matching their own needs and matching the needs of the society may be difficult. The important part is that all adolescents are not different. All are not very impulsive. All are not very sensation seekers. There are many very serious kind of adolescents also who pursue the academic interests and philosophical interests very seriously. But this we have to conceptualize that we have to see it as a varied group who have different types of interests, and the society must have enough to feed each kind of interest in the adolescent age group. Those who are more impulsive and do the kinds of more unacceptable or which creates fear in the adults, that speeding and going for unusual kind of adventurous activities. So those things we need to accommodate. At the same time, we need to control also to some extent. Means not directly controlling, but trying to persuade and trying to kind of bargain with them that it is not harmful for them. At the same time, it serves their purpose. I mean, their desires and they get enough means entertainment and enough means they mature in a good way, the way they want. At the same time, they don't harm themselves. So that is the way I look at this topic. And young people are vulnerable, as Dr. Savita Malhotra told. And we should focus on how we can mix with them. We try to be with them, the adults, the mature people, try to be with them, understand them, and slowly negotiate with them that they are not into harmful things. At the same time, they get enough entertainment and enjoyment. Thank you so much.
Well, Dr. Mishra, have you left already?
No, I'm there, sir. I'm there.
Okay.
Thank you,
so I'm giving you more space and more time.
No. Thank you, Kanada. Thank you very much for your lucid overview about the facts. And now I can request Dr. Kishor Gujar, the president of IACAM, to give his viewpoint, and from there onwards, join the will take over.
Thank you.
Kishor Gujar, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mishra ji. Most of the neurobiological aspects Madam had covered. That is most essence and crux of the problem. But simultaneously, I consider peer pressure is an important and a very valid factor in this age group. If you are not identified and accepted by your colleague, peer, then you find you feel rejected, and that is the reason most of the adolescents indulge into social media, internet, and smartphone. Additionally, the other most important aspect of adolescence is the most vulnerable for from all angles, biological, psychological, social. From the dependence, they have to become independent. Academic achievement, the pressure is there. Further, career related issues are there, and simultaneously, whatever adversity happened in the childhood, whatever the relational difficulty with the parent, that try to upsurge at that stage, and that's why they are more at conflict with the parental control. Additionally, most of the psychiatric mental health issues try to come upsurge at this age, and that creates the comorbidity. And by virtue of comorbidity, they are more vulnerable to smartphone addiction. And there are multiple factors, other multiple factors, like whatever Madam has covered, the rewards, incentive reward system mature earlier than cognitive control system. Because of which they are most vulnerable for risk-taking behavior, indulging into the different aspects without thinking, impulsivity. These are the factors play the most important role in this. And simultaneously, sexuality, evolution of the sexuality, finding a relationship with the opposite sex, these are all other issues try to observe, and that is also make them stressful. And behavior addiction, smartphone addiction, little gives relief to most of their stresses. And that is the that is what I think. Peer pressure, vulnerability, multiple comorbidity, and parental whatever relational difficulty try to upsurge at this stage. These are the factors playing and make them more vulnerable for the behavioral addiction. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kishor Gujar. Thank you so much. You have put forward a different perspective from the previous speakers. So we'll discuss more about it and try to go for another round. I'd like to now call upon the youngest of the panelists, Dr. Vivek, a smiling face, a young, energetic. Your views on his young mind. I'm not including here you as a young person, okay? Is young mind more vulnerable to behavior addiction? Your take on that.
Yeah, thank you and good evening to everyone. I will rather digress from the issue somewhat, and my take is this question that young people are more vulnerable raises more questions than answers. So I will put forward some points like the prevalence of internet addiction has come up to say 20%, and psychiatric disorders in children and adolescents is also up to 20%. And we know that internet addicted children are highly comorbid. So are we seeing the almost more or less same population? But this population is already vulnerable for different disorders due to variety of genetic and environmental factors. One. Then second is whether we like it or not, internet is the meat. Children learn, communicate, entertain through it. Paper book stores are closing down. Ultimately, everything will shift to a screen. This is already happening. So is it a phase when people get hooked to a new thing, which is very vast and gradually stabilize? Society is in a big change, and in future there will be new normals for screen users. People are earning by gaming, YouTubing, e-magazines are there and so on. We were reading online newspapers during lockdown. Then another issue is internet could be medium of expression of problematic behavior, which used to be offline also. Bullying at school versus cyberbullying, offline sexuality versus cyber sex, offline gambling versus online gambling, so on. So my take is, without trying to pathologize a changing phase, the focus should be on problematic behavior which is impairing in social or personal life, inability to control use, grades are falling, relationship issues, self-care issues, physical problems. We need to sensitize the children. Like any other psychiatric disorders, the preventive approaches should be taken right from the beginning, including the mass education of the society, sensitization of the society. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek, for highlighting another dimensions for this particular issue that we've been discussing. Now, I'd like to go to Madam Dr. Adarsh Kohli. Madam, are you hearing me? Yeah, I think you should unmute your mic. Okay. I wish I could have shared your coffee with you while discussing that. I could see that you've been sipping a hot coffee, and I envy you rather. Anyway, madam.
Yes. I'm missing the virtual.
So I'm sure, because coffee has already stimulated your mind and brain. So this will be a very stimulating presentation from your side. The floor is yours, madam. Please, your opinion in this regard.
So, good evening, everybody. I was really apprehensive that the four speakers before me are going to take away all the psychological, social, environmental issues of the vulnerability to behavioral addiction. But I'm happy that some of the points are still not covered. So I'm not going into the definition of behavioral addiction, but I'm going to talk about the social learning. I think we all know that I'm going to focus more on the environment and the parents, and excuse me if I put the blame on the parents or I throw everything on them. The individuals, they model, they learn, they copy, and they maintain behaviors that are observed and which appear appealing and reinforcing. So parents and family members, they serve as significant models. We all know about modeling, and we all know how parents serve as models to their own children for addictive behaviors. Even teachers or neighbors can serve as models to addictive behavior. So if a child at home sees that in order to relax or burst stress, the parents pick up their phones. Most of the parents, when they're tired, and most of my friends are doing it too, that when they're tired or when they get up in the morning to relax, they're opening their phones, looking at WhatsApp messages. And they said they have a cup of tea and they early morning with the WhatsApp messages. So they drink or they smoke or they gamble or they play video games. So the child is more likely to try out these behaviors as well. So in the absence of other healthier examples, it seems that these activities are good ways to relax, have fun, and reduce stress. Examples for the children are right there before them in their immediate environment. The next point is on life course trajectory. A lot of life events are happening in children, which is a period of change, which is sensitive, and which are sensitive periods, or they're critical periods, or they're vulnerable periods. These may be biological, like achieving milestones, such as puberty, or they may be entering a new environment, new learning, attending school, or not being able to make friends, or any other hassle in the social and environmental issues. So how a child responds to these is going to be influenced by his cognitive, emotional, and social development at that point, and his past history, his family relationships, and the surrounding world. Other transitions like parental divorce, anything happening between parents, arguments, bickerings, parental substance abuse, mental illness. It requires the child to adapt to the new situation. And these are sensitive and critical periods which make them more vulnerable to the risk factors. The peer pressure. We have a lot of people have referred to the peer pressure, and I think it's a big factor, because peer pressure causes the kids to do things which, with the hope of fitting into the group. A lot of children, they want to find a social status among their friends, and they want to be noticed, and they want to have a social standing. So they get on hook to what their friends are doing. So they're vulnerable at this stage. And this is a stage when they are separating from their parents' influence. Friends are more important to them at this stage than the parents. So they want to establish their own values, their own understanding about human relationships and the consequences of their behavior. Cognitively also, their logic is not fully developed at that stage. So they cannot reason out well, and they succumb to pressure and succumb to this addiction. The family environment, we all know, the socialization which takes place early in childhood, the quality of parenting. Parents are not able to guide, they don't give proper attention, they don't nurture the children, they don't spend time with them, they don't have anything like joint activities, the family functioning is poor, and proxy parenting is going on. And siblings, they too exert a lot of influence on the other children. So internalizing and externalizing disorders, behavioral addictions, and they copy the positive behaviors and they copy the negative behaviors too from their sibs. Temperament, we all know that having a difficult temperament can result in self-regulation, and we really need self-regulation for getting away with addictions. Different temperaments lead to different childhood behaviors, and one is low fearful inhibition. These children are more likely to be at higher risk for addictive behaviors because they are not afraid of the harmful consequences of their actions. They get into these risky things and they're not afraid of what is going to happen. And the other pathway is emotional regulation. Dr. Savita has already talked about emotional regulation. I'm not going to the details. Active and mischievous children are more prone, as they're likely to explore new things and they're ready for experimentation. And if you come to bigger children, the children who are high on impulsivity, low on frustration tolerance, they cannot, tolerate any kind of no and any kind of frustration in their goals, or if they're too aggressive, if they're high on sensation seeking, high level of harm avoidance, high on compulsivity, cognitive inflexibility, insecure attachments, and high on aggression. All this leads to addiction. And cognitive theory also, it says that addictive behaviors are chosen over healthy behaviors because of the expectations. And when a child expects that the pros and cons of addictive behavior they favorably outweigh the pros and cons of healthy behavior, they always choose pleasure over moral things. A child may believe that craving, if not satisfied, will result in harm. And he may believe that healthier choices will lead to boredom. And last of all, genetics. I think a lot of my psychiatrist friends have said about genetics. And of course, genetics has a substantial role. It influences the person's abilities, personality, physical health, vulnerability to risk factors. But genes are only part of the story, because after all, their interaction with the environment is important. Whether that will happen or not will depend upon multiple factors, some of which might protect a child from behavioral addictions, or else will make him more vulnerable and the child will give in to behavioral addictions. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Thank you so much. We have just heard 5 different panelists giving different views about this particular topic. Is young mind more vulnerable for behavioral addiction? The good thing of the last 20 minutes or so is that nobody has talked and overlapped in others' views, and that is the beauty of the last the session that we have had. Now, I'd like to bring in Dr. Savita Malhotra again. Madam, you have broadly focused on neurobiological developmental issues, the neuronal development, pruning, etc., frontal cortex development. By and large, society, parents, and teachers, when they observe the vulnerability and also addiction part of the smartphone or any other behavioral addiction that we have been discussing in this particular seminar, they are aware, as my observation goes, they are aware that they try to blame on peers, friends, social values, emergence of TV culture, emergence of digital phones, etc. But I'm sure most of the parents, teachers, and society by and large, they are not aware about this particular aspect of neurodevelopmental process or neurobiological developmental process. I think they will be little surprised when you say that it takes 25 years to develop an adolescent to mature him. So in particular, from that point of view, I have a feeling that many a times in the family, there's the confrontation and conflict that goes on between the parents and the vulnerable child or adolescent. It is because of not understanding the neurobiological maturational aspect, and that it takes so much of time. Do you think in that respect, in that particular regard, that we need as a psychiatrist to do something to make teachers and parents aware about this aspect? And do you think if we can do so little successfully and we can spread this message, some kind of a confrontation will be reduced and probably parents will be able to handle their children in a more positive, more happier way? What is your take on that? Do you observe the same thing that I have been observing?
Absolutely. I think you raised a very, very important issue and question. Socially, I think there is a little paradox in society in the way we look at our adolescents and this age group. As I already said, that we define age of maturity as 18 or 21. Age for marriage 21, age for voting 18. But then our age of maturity, the cognitive maturation takes only up to 25 years of age, So therefore, many a times the issues that come up are also kind of this criminal culpability, because these adolescents do not have enough of cognitive maturation or sense of judgment and fully developed, and they cannot take more considered decisions. And we need to kind of bring in some kind of an educational campaign here for parents and also teachers and society as a whole. In general, we do need to talk about it. That's one thing. There is no question about it. Second is that, if we look at our own earlier system, Indian system, that we had first 25 years of brahmacharya, first 25 years of brahmacharya, that is the age or period of learning, and learning under the conditions of strict control and almost celibacy. That is, the child is to be taken away or not kind of exposed to the pleasures of life. So it is to be kind of done under strict discipline, strict control, away from the pleasures of life. 25 years of learning, that was brahmacharya period, and which actually makes sense for us. For looking at this issue in the contemporary society, there is a question, Dr. Jayaprakash says that should we be kind of talking to the adolescent that your brain is immature, so you can't take these decisions? I think not in this way. Certainly not in this way. If you tell them you are immature, they are not going to take it and understand. They think, by the time these adolescents are about 16, 18 years of age, they start saying that I know myself, I know better than you, and you don't know. They start questioning and challenging parents. And we can't say to them that your brain is as yet immature. But I think this is the time when we have to sit down and discuss with them openly, freely, all the pros and cons and the possibilities, giving examples and so on. That's one thing. And second thing is that setting rules. If you eventually leave the decision to the adolescent that, okay, I've told you, but you do what you want to do, I think because of his sheer immaturity, he may still take a wrong decision. But this is also the age for experimentation, and the children, they like to learn by making mistakes. So there has
just to interrupt, madam, how to spread this message to the parents and to the teachers? Through school mental health program, or involving parents into the skill system, education system? Do you think that will help?
Both ways, and also writing about it. We don't write enough about it in the newspapers, in the popular media, and so on. We must start writing about it.
Since we have to cover all the panelists for the second round, thank you so much. I
will just make one small comment that establish rules, simple rules should be set, that this is done, this is not done, allowing graded responsibility, allowing them to make simple mistakes and then learn from it. Now, these are some of the strategies that we must follow, and then keep them under close observation and watch. If you tell them that your brain is immature, no child is going to take it. Okay.
Thank you, madam, for your comprehensive, insight about these particular issues. Now, I'd like to come to Dr. Devashish Konar. Extension of the same queries. Now, since we have we mental health professionals, as psychiatrists, we like to view everything, analyze everything from the biopsychosocial model. Neurobiologically, yes, this is what Dr. Savita Malhotra has already given her perspective. So if we consider everything as a biopsychosocial perspective, particularly about this topic that we are discussing, then how do you think we can adopt certain methods and measures so that we can reduce the vulnerability of this section of the children and adolescents? Vulnerability related to, behavioral addiction. What is your opinion about that?
The most important thing that I feel that we don't have enough contact with adolescents, means parents. I'm talking of parents or seniors, whoever around. Usually, children pursue their own interests and parents don't have time, or parents are busy pursuing their own interests. So if you are with the child or adolescent, you understand them properly and you are able to empathize and you are able to share things. In that case, you will understand the child more, and child will also understand you more. The distance is not created, and that helps in interfere. Means if you want some correction in their behavior, that becomes easier if you are closer to them. If you are not close to them and you are just acting as a boss, so that doesn't help. You have to be a friend of an adolescent, then only you can penetrate their world, and you can negotiate and have desirable behavior from them.
Thank you. Dr. Gujar, Kishor Gujar, are you here? Yes, you are. Are you hearing me, sir? Yes, okay.
Yes.
You made your opening remark with parenting styles. You talked about parenting, okay? So in this particular context, how do you think we can reduce the vulnerability of this section of the children and adolescents from the parenting perspective? And also, do you think the education system, I'm not talking about teachers alone, education system can play a role in reducing or mitigating the vulnerability of adolescents so far the behavioral addiction is concerned? I'm not discussing about other addiction. Behavioral addiction is concerned.
Okay. Definitely, there are many things we can do at different levels. First, making them aware. Parents, if parents are given input related to parenting from the childhood and stage, then that will definitely reduce the tension and conflict. That will definitely help to settle down proper communication. And if that is settled down, most of the problems can be undermined, minimized. That is one part of it. And additionally, as you mentioned, in the school setting or other setting, whatever the life skill training promoted by WHO, if we introduce them in a proper age, at earliest, the 13, 14 onwards, till the 18, then they will have a more better understanding of the problem and appropriate strategy to solve them systematically. If they have a proper understanding about the problem, evaluation of the problem. What happened in our Ayurveda parenting victim first 5 years treat him like a prince. Next 10 years treat him like slave. And after that, treat him like a friend.
Okay.
We follow that strategy. Live apart the next 10 years, that is slave. I don't agree with that. But treat them child at the age of 15, when adolescence onwards, as a friend. And establish a democratic communication that will definitely help to reduce the burden and distress related to adolescence, and otherwise vulnerable period will be smoother. That is what I suggest.
Do you then feel that, do you then feel that neurobiological environment can be changed with a healthy parenting or parenting style, or can be influenced rather? I cannot.
Absolutely. Promotive strategy, mindfulness, this type of technique, if it is properly utilized, whatever the vulnerability arising out of the neurobiological complexity can be undermined, can be minimized.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Before I come to Vivek, I'll keep you waiting for a few minutes. Okay, don't mind for that. I'd like to go to Madam Adarsh Kohli. Madam, see, we have been observing changes and transition of the society. And what the experts have observed during last few decades, the society, the pace of the progress and development and growth of society, pace is very fast. It has accelerated pretty fast. Now, I think you, me, and maybe I can include Savita and also Devashish, that we have seen 1990s, 1999, and also, emergence of this new millennium. What is your observation regarding the vulnerability amongst these children? So for the behavioral addiction is concerned, say, till 1999, what was the scenario and what is the difference that you find now from 2000 onwards till this day? I mean, just an observation. This may not be very objective, but your observation. Sometimes practical observation helps a lot to come to a hypothesis. Am I correct?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I think with the changing scenario now in the 90s and now in the 2000, what I'm seeing now is that there's a lot of gap which is occurring between parents and children. They are, everybody is more into technology, and the human-to-human interaction has reduced. That is what I would like to tell you. And over the years, I have noticed that even somebody is asking a question, and I think we have to move to the audience questions also. What I have observed very significantly is that children are not talking at the same age that they used to. A 2-year-old child was communicating in small phrases, and most of the parents are complaining now that the child is not talking. Why? Because there's a lot of gap between now parents' preoccupation with their family affairs, with their occupations, with their technology, with their mobile phones. They are not interacting with the child as much. And all the children are speaking late, which is a very significant thing that I have noticed during my 40 years of practice now in the clinic, that the psychologists who are assessing the children are noticing that a 2-year-old child should be speaking in phrases, and they are not. Even 3-year-old children are not speaking. Most of them are picking up speech after 3. Why? Because the interaction between parents and the quality of parenting that is happening has reduced remarkably. Parents are no longer able to spend quality time with the children. They're not participating. They're finding difficulty in family time. You tell them to have family time, they don't know what to do. They don't know what is participative learning. They don't know what is joint play. They don't know what is quality time. They don't know how to play together. They don't know how to communicate. The easiest thing they know is just hand over the phone to the child, and they get busy in their own work, and the child is busy in their own technology. So I think the phenomena which was talking about digital fasting and all, that's very significant. And I think we have to move from technology to human interaction and encourage.
Does it mean that and then over the years, say from 2000 onwards, the vulnerability has increased because of the reasons that you have been just cited?
Yes, I would like to say that because I'm a psychologist and I would like to stress more on parental factors and social learning. And
so has this transition and then progress of the society also influenced the neurobiological developmental system? Could it?
I'm not sure about that because I don't think we have evidence and we can really prove it. But
okay, that's a feeling that it has come to my mind, and so that will bring to Vivek now. Madam has narrated, say 1999, then 2000 onwards, 2020, and we can, as we have heard, as the experts have said, that by 2040, by 2045, 2050, the society will be totally different. Okay. The exponential growth of the technology will bring and usher a different kind of human society and human, as we have discussing, a different kind of a humankind, human behavior altogether, especially after the emergence of artificial intelligence, and also, conglomeration of biotechnology, nanotechnology, and artificial convergence of artificial intelligence. All these three factors. You, as the youngest panelist of today's topic, what is your take on that? What we can do for the future generation so that we can diminish their, this vulnerability of behavioral addiction for the future? What we can give the newly married couple? What kind of advice we can give to the newly married couple?
That is the problem actually. We are viewing the situation from our perspective. What is the perspective of younger generation might be quite different from our perspective. We see spending time on mobile phone or communicating through WhatsApp as a problem. But is it so if we ask or survey the younger population, say adolescents? So this change has to happen whether we like it or not. This is going to happen, and that's why I said there will be new normal.
And we have to adapt with that new normal situation.
Yes.
And we have to equip and prepare our future generation that way, right?
Right. So educating them about the pitfalls of excessive technology use, what they can do, do's and don'ts, that is important. Empowering them, not prohibiting them.
That is what. Okay. Thank you, Vivek. So, as it has been said that let technology empower you, let it not overpower you. Okay, yeah. That is for the masses, for the future generation. Anyway, I'd like to bring the participants, other participants, if they have any queries. We have 5 minutes and we can extend it to probably another 5 minutes. So total we have roughly 7-8 minutes. So where is the host? You can take over for the participants' queries if there is any, then I'll come back again. Host Arya, Ranita, I think Ranita is the host, Dr. Ranita.
Sir, yes.
Is there any queries from the participants for the panelists?
Sir, there is one.
You can please read it out, and if any specific panelist has been mentioned to answer the queries, you can read it out.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think it's from Sir Chidji Srivastava to Darshan Kamat behavior addiction. Generally one, but certain specific behaviors can interfere with social development. However, no behavior can make a child autistic. The reverse is true. A child with autism is more likely to. I think it's more of an answer, sir. It's
more of a comment than a query, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, then. Let me come for the final round, and I would like to wind up after that. I request all the panelists for the final round and give their opinion or a final remark, maybe very short, maybe one-liners, starting with Dr. Malhotra.
Well, I think this addiction and internet use and all that, this is the rule of the day now, and we have to all learn to kind of use it, as you said, judiciously and not get, not succumb to it. But certainly, we must understand the impact it's going to make on the brain development and also on the consequently the social behavior and behavior of children and adolescents. And certainly the parents, I think what Dr. Adarsh has brought out, the role of parents is very, very significant and very, very important. The parents themselves actually have chosen to use this as an excuse. They are busy themselves and they hand over the phone or the TV to the young child as old as 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, so that the child does not bother them and does not interfere in their own pleasure or pursuit. That is not a right strategy. Somebody has asked a question whether it can produce communication difficulties, delayed speech. Of course it does. Even autistic like behavior, we have seen in clinics that there are reports, and we have seen the actual real patients in the clinics where children is not responding. They're emotionally not reciprocating, and they are not listening properly, and they are hooked to television, I mean, during infancy, and the autistic like behavior, and this took a lot of time and effort to really reverse that effect. So the consequences can be very serious and very real.
Thank you so much, Dr. Devashish. Your concluding remark.
I'll tell about management part. That when you are coming across, you must be very sensitive in handling the adolescent. When sometimes you yourself become very authoritative, or sometimes you yourself authoritarian. Yeah, sometimes you are like their parents. You try to address them as beta and all. Means similar kind of treatment as their parents do. So that may be the point where you actually not able to establish relationship with the child. Means you have to go to their platform in their way, and you must try to be friendly. Then only you can reach them and understand them, and then you will be able to help them. Don't try to be their boss, and don't try to guide them always. Try to learn their perspective and then slowly enter their world. That is sympathetic.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gujar. You are the president. Your final and concluding remark.
Hello. As I mentioned earlier,
yes.
In the, as you told, there is a rapid change, transition happened, and because of this, I find the parenting, the education, parenting sensitivity is not there. If we introduce parenting education before actually birth of the child, and continue to give input by different way, by media or by different way, definitely reduce the burden parent-child interaction, and that will definitely help smoothing relationship at the adolescent stage, that is vulnerable period. Additionally, as I mentioned earlier, school mental health project, if it is properly utilized, used in a three level, promotive level, early identity risk level, and actively managing established disorder. Then we can address the comorbidity. Simultaneously, once you address the comorbidity, vulnerability to become behaviorally addicted, we will rapidly, drastically reduce it. And that is what this strategy should be.
Thank you.
Used. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I think your audio is having some problem. Your audio is creating problem. I'd like to go to, I'm sorry, Dr. Kishor, your audio is giving some problem. I think I'd like to go to Dr. Adarsh. Dr. Adarsh, are you hearing me?
Yes, yes.
Hello.
Okay. So, can you hear me?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm reading remark.
Okay. So I have already stressed on the family and the parents. I think we need to have limit setting, which is very important. Fix a time for the technology, like how much time are you going to use it? Because I know that your phones tell you, you know, how many hours were you on the phone. And even we as parents are very conscious now that we were there for 4 hours or 2 hours. Yeah. Also, we need quality parenting, like, you know, a proper balance of care and control. If you're giving a phone to the child, that doesn't mean that you're caring for the child. And we need to learn new methods of interacting with the child. We've forgotten the story times, the little tales that we tell to the children, the poem time. We need to channelize their energy. We are more communicative with them, and we can be closer to them. Will really affect them and will be meaningful to them, you know. Thank you.
Hello. Jayanta, you can take any questions now. Jayanta, disconnect हो गए क्या? Anta, Jayanta has got disconnected. Any questions further? You can just take up. Otherwise, you can close. We'll have to close the session.
I think, sir, we don't have any more questions.
I think this is very clear by all the panelists.
Close the session, yeah.
Yeah, then we should. If there are no more questions, I think already 8:20.
Okay,
we can close the section to thanks all the panelists for extensively dealing with the very important aspect of child and adolescent addiction within a very short period of time. And he has given the brief overview about the thing, what are the neurobiological changes are occurred due to the process, and how can at the primary level it can be managed or prevented. So with this, I thank all the panelists as the chairperson of the committee, and I thank all of them, and I thank all the participants. Now hand over to the organizer for the next section. Thank you very much, all the panelists.
Thank you, sir. I would like to thank again team panelists and all the moderators for making such an insightful discussion and making this panel discussion a success.